Captain Hyun-woo Park sat in his chair on the bridge of the New Seoul. The diplomatic ship moved slowly through space toward the neutral zone. It was a routine mission to deliver trade agreements between human colonies and the Centauri Federation. Nothing exciting ever happened on these trips. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Lieutenant So-young Kim worked at her science station, checking data about alien plant samples they had collected last week. Communications officer Tae-min Yoon monitored the radio channels for any interesting signals from nearby systems. Hyun-woo had been a captain for 12 years. He had seen many strange things in space, but today felt different. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones. The warning alarm suddenly broke the silence. Every person on the bridge looked up from their work. A red light flashed on. The main screen. "Captain," Taemin said with worry in his voice. "We have an incoming transmission. It is coming from Vorthak space." Everyone on the bridge went completely silent. The Vorthak were the most feared species in the galaxy. They were 12 feet tall with sharp claws and teeth like knives. Their skin was dark gray and covered in natural armor. They had conquered 17 star systems through pure strength and violence. "Are you sure it is from the Vorthak Empire?" Hyun-woo asked. His heart was beating faster now. "Yes, sir. The signal pattern matches their military frequencies. This is definitely from them." Hyun-woo had never spoken to a Vorthak before. No human had ever received a direct message from them. The Vorthak usually communicated through other species or not at all. They preferred to let their weapons do the talking. "Put it through to the main screen," Hyun-woo ordered. The screen flickered and then showed the face of a massive Vorthak warrior. His head was the size of a human torso. Scars covered his face from many battles. His yellow eyes stared directly at Hyun-woo. When he opened his mouth, his teeth looked like small swords. "I am War Commander Threk of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet," the alien said in perfect English. His voice was so deep it made the ship's walls vibrate. "I speak for the High Council of Warriors." Hyun-woo tried to keep his voice steady. "This is Captain Hyun-woo Park of the human vessel New Seoul. What can we do for you, War Commander?" Threk stared at him for a long moment. Behind the Vorthak, Hyun-woo could see other warriors moving around what looked like a command center. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans. "Your species has something we need," Threk said slowly. "We have watched humans for many cycles. You are weak in body, but you possess a skill we have lost." So, Young looked confused. She whispered to the captain, "What skill could we possibly have that they want?" Threk continued speaking. "We require human assistance with our most precious duty. You will come to our sacred nursery world. You will help us care for our young." The entire bridge crew stared at the screen in shock. Lieutenant Commander Ji-hoon Lee, the ship's diplomat, stepped forward. He had dealt with many alien species, but never the Vorthak. "War Commander, with respect, we do not understand. The Vorthak have never allowed other species near your children." "Why do you ask this of humans?" Threk's expression did not change. "Our greatest warriors die in battle against the machines from dark space. Too many are gone. Our cubs suffer. Without proper guidance, they become weak and broken inside." So-young raised her hand slightly. "Sir, may I ask about these machines you mentioned?" "The Null Swarm," Threk said with hatred in his voice. "Mechanical demons that learn from every battle. They have no honor, no soul. They adapt to our tactics and turn our strength against us. We have fought them for 50 cycles with little success." Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors about mysterious attacks on the outer rim, but the Vorthak had never asked for help from anyone. "Why humans specifically?" Ji-hoon asked carefully. "Surely there are other species better suited for childcare." Threk leaned closer to the screen. "We have studied all species in this galaxy. Humans alone create warriors who can also show mercy. Your young learn both kindness and cunning. They grow strong in mind and heart together. This is what our cubs need to survive what is coming." The silence on the bridge was heavy. Everyone understood the importance of what they were hearing. The most powerful military force in known space was admitting they needed help. "Our cubs are dying inside," Threk continued. "They grow large and strong in body, but their spirits break. They cannot adapt like their enemies. They follow the old ways, but the old ways lead only to defeat and death. So Young stepped forward. War Commander, I am a xenobiologist. I have studied many species and their young. What exactly do you need us to do? Come to our nursery world. Teach our cubs what you teach your own young. Show them how to be complete beings, not just weapons of war. Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. Their faces showed the same mix of fear and curiosity he felt. This could be the most important moment in human history, or it could be a trap that would start a war. War Commander, this is a very unusual request. My government will need to approve any mission to Vorthak space. Threk's eyes narrowed slightly. You have 72 hours to decide. If you refuse, we will find another way. But know this, human captain. The darkness spreads, the machines grow stronger. Soon they will come for your worlds too. Our young must be ready to fight beside yours, or all will fall to the null swarm. The transmission ended abruptly. The screen went black, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Ji-hoon was the first to speak. Captain, this could change everything. If the Vorthak are really losing a war, the entire balance of power in the galaxy is at stake. So Young nodded. But why our children's methods? What do they think we can teach that they cannot learn themselves? Taimin looked worried. Sir, what if this is some kind of test? The Vorthak are known for testing the courage of other species. Hyun-woo stood up from his chair and walked to the main viewing port. Outside, the stars looked the same as always, but everything had changed in the last few minutes. Set course for Earth immediately, he ordered. Maximum speed. We need to get this information to the Federation Council as fast as possible. As the new soul changed direction and jumped to faster than light speed, Hyun-woo wondered if humanity was ready for what might be the greatest challenge they had ever faced. The galaxy's fiercest warriors needed their help, and somehow that was more terrifying than any threat they had encountered before. 3 days after the message from War Commander Threk, Captain Hyun-woo Park received orders from Earth Command. The decision had been made at the highest levels of government. Humanity would accept the Vorthak invitation. The new soul approached the Vorthak system with a small team of specialists. Child psychologist Eun-ji Choi sat nervously in the passenger section, reading files about Vorthak culture. Security Chief Dong-hyuk Yang checked his weapons for the 5th time, even though he knew they would be useless against 12-foot warriors. The most unusual member of their team was Minho Seo. He had been a kindergarten teacher on Mars Colony before becoming a xenobiologist. His job was to understand how alien children learned and grew. Minho had worked with the young of 17 different species, but never anything like the Vorthak. Captain, So Young called from her station. We are receiving docking instructions from Vorthak Prime's moon. Through the main viewing port they could see the nursery world. It looked like a fortress covered in metal and stone. Huge weapons platforms orbited the moon like protective parents watching over their child. Energy shields flickered around the surface, strong enough to stop entire fleets. I have never seen defenses this heavy around a civilian world, Dong-hyuk said quietly. Their children are everything to them, Yoon-ji replied. Vorthak culture values nothing higher than the safety of their young. The new soul landed in a docking bay that was built for ships 10 times their size. When the doors opened, they were, met by a group of Vorthak warriors. Each one was massive, wearing armor that looked like it could stop tank rounds. Their weapons were longer than humans were tall. War Commander Threk stood in the center of the group. Up close, he was even more frightening than on the screen. His presence made the air feel heavy. When he breathed, it sounded like distant thunder. Welcome to Kethmore, the sacred nursery, Threk said. His voice echoed in the huge docking bay. You will follow our rules completely. Any threat to our young will result in immediate death. The humans nodded quickly. They had expected this warning. Threk led them through corridors that seemed designed for giants. Everything was built from dark metal and stone. The walls were covered in images of Vorthak warriors in battle. The air smelled of metal and something else, something wild and dangerous. Our cubs are not like your human children, Threk explained, as they walked. They are born with claws and teeth. They can break bones by accident. They do not understand weakness or gentleness. They entered a massive chamber that took Yoonji's breath away. The room was the size of a football stadium. Hundreds of young Vorthak played in different areas. Each cub was already larger than an adult human, but they moved with the awkward energy of children. Minho watched in amazement as the cubs wrestled with each other, using strength that could crush cars. They threw objects that weighed more than he did. Their play sounds were like the roars of ancient monsters. They are magnificent. So Young whispered. They are dying inside. Threk said sadly. Watch closely. The humans observed the cubs more carefully. Something was wrong. The young Vorthak were not truly playing. They were going through motions like actors performing a script. Their eyes looked empty. Some sat alone in corners, staring at nothing. Where are the adult caregivers? Yoonji asked. Fighting. The machines are dead, Threk replied. We have warriors who feed them and make sure they do not hurt themselves badly. But we do not know how to heal their spirits. A small group of cubs noticed the humans and approached slowly. The humans felt very small as the young Vorthak surrounded them. One cub, slightly smaller than the others, sniffed at Minho curiously. This is Grak, Threk said. He has not spoken in 6 months. He was found standing over his father's body after a null swarm attack. Minho felt his heart break looking into Grak's large golden eyes. Despite his size and natural weapons, the young Vorthak looked lost and alone. Minho slowly reached out his hand, moving carefully so as not to frighten the cub. Grak looked at the tiny human hand with confusion. He had never seen anything so small and soft approach him without fear. His massive clawed hand could easily crush the human, but something stopped him. Other cubs gathered around to watch this strange interaction. They had never seen creatures so different from themselves. The humans smelled odd and moved differently. They showed no signs of wanting to fight or prove their strength. What do you normally do to help cubs who are sad? Yoonji asked Threk. We make them fight until they are too tired to think about their pain, the war commander replied. It is the only way we know. Yoonji exchanged glances with Minho. They both understood now why the Vorthak had called for help. These magnificent beings had only one tool for every problem: violence. They could not comfort their young because they had never learned how to comfort themselves. War commander, Minho said softly. May I try something with Grak? Threk's eyes narrowed dangerously. What do you wish to do? I want to sit with him. Just sit quietly. Sometimes children need to know they are not alone. Several Vorthak warriors reached for their weapons at this suggestion. The idea of sitting still with purpose was foreign to their culture. But Threk raised his hand to stop them. You may try, he said, but if you cause harm to any cub, you will not live to regret it. Minho nodded and slowly sat down on the floor near Grak. The young Vorthak looked puzzled by this behavior. Adults did not sit on the ground. Adults did not stay still without purpose. But something about the small human's presence was different. Minho was not trying to make Grak stronger or tougher. He was not demanding anything. He was simply there, calm and patient. For the first time in months, Grak sat down too. The other cubs watched with growing curiosity as the human and the young Vorthak sat together in comfortable silence. This was something completely new in their world. None of them had ever seen an adult choose to be still and quiet with a child. Threk observed from a distance, his expression unreadable. He had brought these humans here hoping they could solve a problem that was destroying his people. But watching them now, he began to wonder if the solution might be simpler and more difficult than he had imagined. 1 week had passed since the humans arrived at the nursery world. Progress had been slow and difficult. The Vorthak cubs did not understand why these tiny, weak creatures were in their sacred space. Some cubs ignored the humans completely. Others tried to test their strength, accidentally hurting themselves when the humans could not provide proper resistance for wrestling. Yoonji spent her days observing the cubs and taking notes. She noticed that Vorthak child-rearing focused only on making the young stronger and more dangerous. Cubs were fed, housed, and trained to fight, but nobody talked to them about their feelings or fears. They treat emotional pain like a broken bone. she explained to Captain Hyunwoo during their daily communication. They think if you ignore it long enough, it will heal on its own. Minho had made little progress with Grak and the other cubs. He tried playing human games with them, but the young Vorthak accidentally destroyed every toy or ball within minutes. Their natural strength made normal play impossible. Dong Hyuk kept watch over the team, but he felt useless. The Vorthak warriors barely acknowledged his existence. They saw him as a weakling pretending to be a protector. The breakthrough came on the 8th day during what the Vorthak called rest period. The cubs were supposed to sleep, but many of them lay awake staring at the ceiling. Their minds were too troubled for proper rest. Minho could not sleep either. He missed his home, his family, and the simple joy of working with human children. Without thinking, he began to hum a Korean lullaby his grandmother had sung to him when he was young. The Mao. Soft melody drifted across the sleeping area. Several cubs raised their heads to listen. They had never heard sounds like this before. Vorthak music was all drums and war chants. This was something completely different. Gorak, who had been having nightmares every night, slowly approached. Minho. The young Vorthak tilted his massive head, listening to the gentle tune. His golden eyes, which had been empty for so long, showed the first spark of curiosity. Minho continued humming, then began to sing the words softly in Korean. He did not translate them because the meaning was not important. What mattered was the tone, the rhythm, the feeling of safety the song created. More cubs gathered around. They sat quietly, something they had never done before without being ordered. The melody seemed to calm something deep inside them that they did not understand. 1. Of the smallest cubs, a female named Kresh made a soft sound like a purr. This was remarkable because Vorthak cubs rarely made any noise except roars and growls. So Young had been watching from across the room. She approached carefully and sat down next to Minho. She began to hum harmony to his melody. The two human voices blended together, creating something beautiful and peaceful. The cubs were fascinated. They had never heard two voices work together to create something greater than either could make alone. In their culture, voices were used to shout commands or issue challenges. This cooperation was a new concept. War Commander Threk had been observing from the shadows. He stepped forward, his heavy footsteps making the floor vibrate. The humans tensed, thinking they had done something wrong. "What is this sound you make?" Threk asked. His voice was quieter than usual, as if he did not want to break the peaceful mood. "It is called a lullaby," Minho explained. "Humans sing them to help children feel safe and loved." "Loved," Threk repeated the word slowly. "We do not have this concept for cubs. We protect them, train them, make them strong. But love," Yunji stepped forward carefully. "War Commander, love is not weakness. It is what makes young ones willing to become strong. They grow powerful not just in body, but in spirit, because they know someone cares about them." Grak moved closer to Minho and made a sound the humans had never heard before. It was not a roar or growl. It was something softer, almost like a question. Minho reached out slowly and gently touched the side of Grak's massive head. The cub did not pull away. Instead, he leaned into the touch, his eyes closing for the first time in months without fear. Other cubs watched this interaction with growing wonder. Physical contact in their culture was either combat or medical treatment. This gentle touching served no practical purpose they could understand, yet it clearly made Grak feel better. "How does this help him become stronger?" one of the Vorthak warriors asked. Yunji thought carefully before answering. "Strong warriors need strong hearts. If the heart is broken or empty, the body's strength means nothing. Your cubs have bodies that can fight, but spirits that are dying." She gestured to Grak, who was now completely relaxed against Minho's side. "Look at him now. He is not weaker. He is more complete." Threk studied the scene for a long time. His warrior training told him this was wrong, that cubs should be tough and independent, but his eyes could not deny what he was seeing. Grak looked more alive than he had in months. "Continue," Threk said finally. Show us more of these human methods. Over the following days, the humans introduced new concepts to the nursery. They taught the cubs simple games that required cooperation instead of competition. So Young showed them how to be gentle with small objects, developing fine motor control along with their natural strength. Yoonji began talking to individual cubs about their fears and worries. This was revolutionary in Vorthak culture, where expressing emotional pain was seen as shameful weakness. The changes were subtle but real. Cubs who had been withdrawn began interacting with others. Nightmare episodes decreased. Most importantly, they began to show creativity in their play instead of just mimicking adult combat moves. Not all the Vorthak warriors approved of these changes. Some muttered that the humans were making their cubs soft and weak, but Threk silenced these complaints with a single look. "I have seen warriors broken by battles they could not understand," he told his doubters. "Our enemies adapt to our strength, but they cannot adapt to something they have never encountered. Perhaps these humans are teaching our cubs to become something new." Minho continued singing lullabies each night. More cubs gathered to listen, and some even tried to hum along with their deep, rumbling voices. The sound was strange but beautiful, like thunder trying to be gentle. Grak had become Minho's constant companion. The young Vorthak followed the human teacher around the nursery, learning by watching instead of fighting. He began to notice things other cubs missed, to think before acting, to consider the feelings of others. But the real test was yet to come. War Commander Threk had been watching these developments with growing hope and fear. The Null Swarm was still out there, still learning and adapting. Soon these cubs would need to prove that human teaching could create warriors capable of facing an enemy that traditional Vorthak methods could not defeat. As Minho sang another lullaby that night, Threk wondered if gentleness could truly create a new kind of strength. The survival of his entire species might depend on the answer. 3 weeks into their stay at the nursery world, the humans began to understand the full scale of the crisis facing the Vorthak Empire. It started when Captain Hyunwoo received permission to access the Vorthak military archives. Ji-hoon worked day and night translating battle reports from the war against the Null Swarm. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The mechanical enemies were not just winning battles, they were systematically destroying everything that made the Vorthak culture strong. "Captain," Ji-hoon said during a private meeting with Hyunwoo and Threk, "the Null Swarm has been studying Vorthak tactics for 50 years. They know exactly how your warriors will respond to every situation." Threk's massive hands clenched into fists. "We are honorable fighters. We follow the codes our ancestors created over thousands of years. These codes have never failed us before." "But that is exactly the problem," Hyunwoo said gently. "Honor and tradition are strengths, but they also make you predictable. The machines learn your patterns and use them against you." The war commander pulled up a holographic display showing recent battle footage. The humans watched in horror as Vorthak warriors charged enemy positions with incredible bravery, only to be cut down by automated defenses that had been perfectly positioned to counter their attack patterns. "Every time we adapt one tactic, they adapt 3 counters," Threk explained. "They do not fight with honor or courage. They fight only to win using methods we would never consider." So Young had been studying the archived data about the Null Swarm. These machines appear to be ancient artificial intelligence systems. They have no emotions, no culture, no concept of honor. They simply analyze and respond. "Why have you not asked other species for help?" Dong-hyuk asked. Threk's expression darkened. "We are Vorthak. We do not ask for help. We do not show weakness. Until now." The true revelation came when Eunji discovered psychological profiles of young Vorthak from before the war. She compared them to current cubs and found devastating differences. "War Commander," she said carefully, "your species is not just losing a war. You are losing your ability to think creatively." She showed him data comparing problem-solving abilities of cubs from 50 years ago to current young ones. The decline was shocking. Modern Vorthak cubs could only think in terms of direct confrontation. They had lost the ability to find indirect solutions or think beyond traditional warrior methods. "The constant war has eliminated every adult who thought differently," Yoonji explained. Only the most traditional warriors survive long enough to teach the next generation. Your gene pool of ideas is shrinking. Minho had noticed this too in his work with the cubs. Gorak and the others have incredible potential, but they have been taught there is only one right way to solve any problem. Fight harder, be stronger, show no mercy. That is the Vorthak way, Threk said defensively, and it is killing your people, Hyunwoo replied bluntly. Not just in battle, but in spirit. The captain pulled up human historical records. My species went through something similar long ago. We had warrior cultures that valued only strength and honor, but we survived because we also valued other things. Curiosity, creativity, compassion. He showed images of human children learning through play, experimentation, and cooperation. We teach our young to be strong when strength is needed, but also to be clever, adaptable, and caring. Threk studied the images with growing understanding. This is why you were chosen. Not because you are weak, but because you are complete. So Young had been analyzing Vorthak brain scans. War Commander, your species has the same neural capacity as humans for creative thinking, but those pathways have been suppressed by generations of focusing only on combat. Can they be restored? Threk asked. In the young, yes. Adult brains are more difficult to change, but cubs like Grak still have developing minds. They can learn new ways of thinking. Over the following days, the humans began to understand their true mission. They were not just teachers or caretakers. They were trying to save an entire species from evolutionary suicide. Ji-hoon discovered that the Vorthak had been secretly studying human military tactics for decades. You have files on every major human conflict. You know we are effective fighters despite our physical limitations. Human warriors confuse us, Threk admitted. You win battles you should lose. You survive situations that should kill you. You adapt faster than should be possible. Because we think with our hearts as well as our minds, Yunji said. A human soldier fights not just for victory, but for the people they love. This gives them motivation to find solutions that pure logic cannot discover. Minho had been working with Grak on a new type of training. Instead of direct combat, he taught the young Vorthak to solve puzzles, to find multiple paths to the same goal, to consider the feelings and motivations of others. The results were remarkable. Grak began showing forms of intelligence that amazed even Threk. The young Vorthak could predict opponent behavior, not through combat analysis, but through understanding what they might be thinking and feeling. He is becoming something new, Threk observed as he watched Grak help a smaller cub solve a complex problem, through patience and encouragement, rather than dominance. He is becoming complete, Minho corrected. All the potential was always there. We just gave him permission to use it. But the most shocking revelation came when Threk finally revealed the full truth about the war. The Null Swarm had not just been studying Vorthak tactics. They had been deliberately eliminating any Vorthak who showed signs of creative or unconventional thinking. They target our commanders who adapt quickly, Threk explained. They identify warriors who use unusual tactics and eliminate them first. Over 50 years, they have bred us to be predictable. The humans realized they were witnessing attempted genocide through selective pressure. The machines were not just trying to destroy the Vorthak Empire. They were trying to turn the entire species into something that could never threaten them. This is why you need us, Hyunwoo said. Not to make your warriors weak, but to make them unpredictable again. The cubs we are teaching now will think in ways the Null Swarm has never encountered, So Young added. They will have the strength of Vorthak warriors combined with the adaptability of human creativity. Threk looked at the humans with new respect. You are not trying to change us into humans. You are helping us remember how to be fully Vorthak. That night, as Minho sang his usual lullaby to the cubs, Grak surprised everyone by beginning to sing along. His deep, rumbling voice added a haunting harmony to the gentle human melody. Other cubs joined in, creating something that had never existed before. A Vorthak lullaby. It was still recognizably their species' sound, but it carried gentleness and love instead of aggression and dominance. Threk listened to this impossible music and felt something he had not experienced since his own cubhood. Hope. Perhaps his people could change. Perhaps they could become something the Null Swarm could never predict or counter. The real test would come soon. Reports from the front lines showed the mechanical enemy was preparing a major offensive. The first generation of human-influenced Vorthak cubs would need to prove that their new way of thinking could translate into battlefield success. But for now, Threk was content to listen to his people's young learning to sing lullabies. It was the sound of his species refusing to die. 2 months after arriving at the nursery world, Captain Hyunwoo was summoned to a private meeting with War Commander Threk. The massive Vorthak led him to a secure chamber deep within the fortress, where no other ears could hear their conversation. "Human, Captain," Threk began, his voice heavy with the weight of terrible knowledge. "The time has come to tell you the complete truth about why we called for your help." Hyunwoo sat in a chair that had been specially built for human visitors. Even so, he felt tiny in the enormous room surrounded by Vorthak architecture. "I thought you had already told us everything," Hyunwoo said. Threk activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the Vorthak Empire. Red zones marked areas lost to the Null Swarm. Yellow zones showed contested regions. There was far more red than Hyunwoo had expected. "We have lost 60% of our territory in the past decade," Threk said. "But territory can be reclaimed. What cannot be replaced is what we are losing inside ourselves." The war commander showed population charts that made Hyunwoo's heart sink. The birth rate among Vorthak had been dropping for 30 years. Worse, the survival rate of cubs to adulthood had fallen to dangerous levels. "Our young are dying not from disease or accident," Threk explained. "They are dying from despair. They see only death and defeat in their future, so they lose the will to grow strong." Another display showed psychological evaluation data. Cubs throughout the empire showed signs of severe depression and anxiety. Many refused to eat or participate in training. Some had even begun harming themselves. "This is why the nursery world was created," Threk continued. "We brought all our remaining young to this one place, hoping to protect them from the despair spreading through our people. But it did not work," Hyunwoo observed. "No. We could protect their bodies, but not their spirits. Our warriors know only how to teach strength and courage. We do not know how to heal broken hearts." Threk showed him classified reports from Vorthak military psychologists. The analysis was devastating. The empire faced complete extinction within 2 generations, not from military defeat but from psychological collapse. "Our enemies have achieved something no conqueror in history ever managed," Threk said bitterly. "They are killing us without having to destroy our bodies." The war commander revealed the most classified information of all. Vorthak scientists had been studying other species for decades, looking for solutions to their crisis. They had examined the child-rearing practices of hundreds of alien civilizations. Every other species we studied had either already been destroyed by challenges like ours, or they had never faced truly adaptive enemies, Threk explained. Only humans have survived and thrived despite facing opponents who learned from every encounter. He showed historical data about human conflicts. "Your species has faced mechanical enemies, superior alien technology, disasters that should have destroyed entire civilizations. Yet you not only survive but emerge stronger. What makes you think we can help where others cannot?" Hyunwoo asked. "Because humans are the only species that teaches their young to value both strength and weakness," Threk replied. "You show them how to be warriors when necessary, but also how to be healers, artists, dreamers." The revelation continued as Threk explained what Vorthak observers had learned about human military psychology. Human soldiers fought with an emotional complexity that confused and frustrated enemies who tried to predict their behavior. A human warrior will sacrifice themselves for strangers, fight hopeless battles for abstract principles, show mercy to defeated enemies who showed them none, Threk said with wonder in his voice. "These behaviors make no logical sense, yet they lead to victory." "We fight for more than just survival," Hyunwoo said. "We fight for the kind of world we want our children to inherit." "Exactly. And that requires imagination, hope, creativity. All the things our culture has been systematically eliminating in pursuit of pure strength." Threk showed him the real reason the Null Swarm was so effective against Vorthak forces. The machines had created perfect predictive models of Vorthak behavior, because that behavior followed unchanging patterns. They know exactly how we will deploy our forces, exactly when we will charge, exactly how we will respond to every tactical situation, Threk explained. We have become so disciplined, so focused on traditional methods, that we have made ourselves perfectly predictable. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Threk showed Hyunwoo secret recordings of null swarm communications that had been intercepted and decoded. They are not trying to destroy us quickly, Threk said. They are deliberately prolonging the war, using it to reshape our species into something that can never threaten them. The mechanical intelligence had been conducting a form of selective breeding through warfare. They eliminated creative thinkers, adaptive leaders, and innovative tacticians while allowing traditional warriors to survive and reproduce. Over 50 years, they have been breeding the imagination out of our species, Threk said with growing anger. They want us to survive as slaves who can only think in ways they can predict and control. Hyunwoo felt sick as he understood the full scope of the crime being committed. It was genocide through psychological manipulation, the systematic destruction of everything that made the Vorthak more than just powerful animals. This is why we chose humans, Threk concluded. Your species has faced similar challenges and maintained its diversity of thought. You teach your young to be unpredictable, to value individual creativity within group loyalty. You want us to help you raise warriors who can think like humans, Hyunwoo said. No, Threk corrected. We want you to help us raise Vorthak who can think like complete Vorthak, the way our ancestors did before this war began destroying our spirits. The war commander showed him ancient Vorthak art and literature from before the current crisis. Hyunwoo was amazed to see evidence of a rich culture that valued poetry, music, philosophy alongside military prowess. We were never just warriors, Threk said sadly. We were builders, explorers, thinkers. The war has made us forget everything, except fighting. The cubs we have been working with, Hyunwoo said with growing excitement. They are remembering how to be complete beings. Yes, Grak and the others show qualities we have not seen in young Vorthak for decades. They are strong but also gentle, fierce but also compassionate, tactical but also creative. Threk revealed the final piece of his plan. The cubs being raised with human methods would be sent to join Vorthak military units as junior officers. Their unconventional thinking would provide the unpredictability needed to confuse null swarm predictive systems. But there is great risk, Threk warned. Many adult Vorthak will see these cubs as corrupted, weakened by alien influence. They may face hostility from their own people. That is why you needed us to understand the full truth, Hyunwoo realized. You want humans to continue supporting these cubs even after they leave the nursery. The partnership between our species must continue, Threk agreed. Human advisors working with Vorthak units, teaching both cubs and adults that there are many ways to be strong. As the meeting ended, Hyunwoo felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They were not just helping individual children, they were trying to save an entire civilization from extinction. But he also felt hope. The changes they had seen in Grak and the other cubs proved that the Vorthak capacity for growth and adaptation still existed. It just needed to be awakened and nurtured. That evening, Hyunwoo watched Minho teaching a group of cubs to solve puzzles through cooperation rather than competition. The young Vorthak were learning to think in ways their enemies could never predict. Perhaps that would be enough to turn the tide of a war that had been slowly destroying one of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Perhaps gentleness really could create a new form of strength. 6 months after the humans first arrived at the nursery world, War Commander Threk received a communication that would change the course of galactic history. The message came from Admiral Kreshtor, commander of the 3rd Vorthak Battle Fleet. War Commander. The Admiral's voice carried excitement that had not been heard in Vorthak military communications for decades. The cubs you sent us have achieved the impossible. Threk activated the secure communication channel in his command center. Captain Hyunwoo and his team were present to hear the news about their former students. Tell me everything, Threk ordered. Admiral Kreshtor appeared on the holographic display. Behind him, Threk could see other Vorthak officers celebrating in the background. The Null Swarm attacked our supply convoy with their usual tactics. They predicted every move we would make based on standard protocols. The Admiral's expression grew proud. But young Grak and his unit did not follow standard protocols. They used what he called human-style thinking. Captain Hyunwoo leaned forward with interest. Grak had been one of Minho's most successful students, the first cub to fully embrace both Vorthak strength and human creativity. Instead of directly engaging the enemy fleet, Grak's unit pretended to retreat while actually leading the machines into a trap. Admiral Kreshtor continued. But the trap was not made of weapons, it was made of unpredictability. The Admiral showed them battle footage that amazed everyone watching. Young Vorthak warriors were fighting with a fluid creativity that seemed to confuse the Null Swarm's systems. They used tactics that were simultaneously logical and illogical, aggressive and defensive, traditional and innovative. The machines could not adapt to strategies that kept changing based on emotional intuition rather than pure logic, the Admiral explained. For the first time in 50 years, we achieved complete tactical surprise. Threk felt something he had almost forgotten, pure joy. What were our losses? Minimal, Admiral Kreshtor replied. Gorak's approach focused on disabling enemy systems rather than destroying them completely. His unit showed mercy to defeated opponents and used psychological warfare instead of only physical force. So Young whispered to Yunji. They learned to fight like humans while keeping their Vorthak strength. The Admiral had more good news. Word of the victory is spreading throughout the fleet. Other commanders are requesting human-trained cubs for their units. Morale has improved more in the past week than in the previous 5 years. But the most significant development was yet to come. Admiral Kreshtor revealed that the Null Swarm had done something unprecedented after their defeat. They retreated. Machines have always pressed forward regardless of losses, Threk said with amazement. They do not understand the concept of tactical withdrawal. That is exactly why they retreated, Admiral Kreshtor explained. Their predictive systems failed completely. They could not calculate effective responses to tactics that combined logic with emotion, strength with compassion. The communication ended with orders for Threk to accelerate the human training program. Every Vorthak military unit wanted access to cubs who could think beyond traditional methods. Over the following weeks, remarkable changes swept through both the nursery world and the greater Vorthak Empire. Human teachers arrived from Earth to work alongside Vorthak instructors. The program that had started with a handful of humans and a few hundred cubs expanded to include thousands of young Vorthak. Minho found himself training other human teachers in methods that worked specifically with Vorthak psychology. Remember, he told a new group of instructors, we are not trying to make them human. We are helping them become fully Vorthak. Yunji established the first interspecies child development research center. Vorthak and human scientists worked together to understand how different species could learn from each other without losing their essential nature. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Cubs trained with human methods showed not only improved creativity and emotional intelligence, but also enhanced traditional Vorthak abilities. Their physical training benefited from better mental focus and emotional control. Captain Hyunwoo received regular reports from Vorthak commanders throughout the Empire. Human-trained cubs were revolutionizing military tactics across dozens of star systems. More importantly, they were inspiring adult Vorthak to rediscover parts of their culture that had been forgotten during the Long War. They are teaching us to remember our poetry, one veteran warrior reported. Young Kresh composed a battle song that made our entire unit fight with new spirit. The impact spread beyond military applications. Vorthak colonies began requesting human advisors to help with civilian education, art, and social development. The species that had once valued only strength was rediscovering the power of culture and community. But the most dramatic vindication came when the Null Swarm launched their largest offensive in decades. Intelligence reports indicated they had devoted enormous computational resources to analyzing the new Vorthak tactics and developing countermeasures. The battle took place in the Kepler system, where a mixed force of traditional Vorthak units and human-trained cubs faced 3 entire Null swarm fleets. Military analysts predicted total defeat for the Vorthak forces. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The human-trained cubs did not just use unpredictable tactics, they taught them to traditional warriors in real time during the battle. Grak, now a junior commander, broadcast open communications encouraging all Vorthak units to fight with your hearts as well as your claws. The result was chaos for the Null swarm. Their systems were designed to predict Vorthak behavior based on decades of consistent patterns. But suddenly, conservative adult warriors were fighting with the same creative unpredictability as the human-trained cubs. It was like watching our people wake up from a long sleep, Admiral Kreshtor reported after the victory. Warriors who had followed the same tactics for decades suddenly remembered how to improvise, how to feel inspiration in battle. The Null swarm suffered their first major defeat in the 50-year war. More importantly, their adaptive systems overloaded trying to process the sudden explosion of new tactical variables. 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler, long-range sensors detected Null swarm fleets withdrawing from contested systems and retreating toward the galactic rim. For the first time since the war began, the mechanical invaders were abandoning territory rather than pressing their advantage. War Commander Threk stood in the nursery where it all began, watching human and Vorthak children playing together. The games they played were part cooperation, part competition, part imagination. They were learning to be strong and gentle, fierce and creative, loyal and independent. Captain Hyunwoo joined him at the observation window. "Your people are going to be fine," he said quietly. "More than fine," Threk replied. "We are becoming something new, something our enemies cannot predict because we ourselves do not know all of what we can become." A group of cubs approached. Them, led by Grak, who had returned to visit his former home. The young Vorthak had grown into a formidable warrior, but he still carried himself with the gentle confidence Minho had helped him discover. "War Commander," Grak said, using both Vorthak formal address and human warmth in his tone. "The Council of Admirals has requested that I ask you something." "Speak," Threk commanded. "They want to know if humans would consider a permanent alliance, not just for military cooperation, but for cultural exchange. We want to learn from each other as our children grow up together." Hyunwoo smiled. "I think Earth would be very interested in that proposal." Grak turned to Minho, who had been quietly watching the conversation. "Teacher," he said, using the Vorthak word that had become a title of highest respect. "Will you help us teach the next generation of both our species?" Minho looked around at the cubs playing games that mixed human creativity with Vorthak strength. "I would be honored," he replied. That evening, as the binary suns of the Vorthak system set over the nursery world, a new sound filled the air. Hundreds of voices, human and Vorthak, young and old, joined together in a song that blended Korean lullabies with ancient Vorthak harmonies. The music drifted across the fortress and out into space, where monitoring stations throughout the galaxy detected it. It was the sound of two species learning that their greatest strength came not from what made them different, but from what they could build together. In the depths of space, Null Swarm computational systems tried to analyze this new development and failed. There was no algorithm for understanding the power of friendship between species. No logic that could predict the strength that came from choosing to be vulnerable with those who were different. For the first time in their existence, the machines encountered something they could not learn, could not adapt to, could not counter: the infinite creativity that emerged when beings chose to trust each other completely. War Commander Threk listened to the impossible music and spoke, the words that would become legend among both species. "We thought strength meant the absence of weakness. You taught us that true strength means protecting what makes us gentle. Our cubs are not becoming weak, they are becoming unbreakable." The galaxy's fiercest species had learned that their greatest victory would not come from conquering their enemies, but from discovering they no longer needed to face anything alone.